You are listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Welcome back. Welcome to a fresh week. I'm so glad that you're here and that we're spending this time together. And I'm thrilled to share the work of my guest with you today. His name is Eugene Mirman. He's an actor and comedian, and you probably know him best from his work on Bob's Burgers. He's the voice of Gene, but he's also been working well over 20 years on the comedy scene. And so every major comedian that you've seen in TV and movies has probably worked with Eugene in some fashion. But we're here today to talk about his new documentary that's out. It's called It Started as a Joke, and it chronicles the Eugene Mirman Comedy Festival, which literally started as a joke. And so he talks about his journey with that. He talks about growing up and getting into comedy and connection. And then we also talk about, as you'll see in the documentary, about the loss of his wife and mother of his child through cancer. And so we really talk about legacy and life and what it means to leave behind a legacy. And I think this is just such a conversation on the rawness and the reality and the sadness of life, and how comedy is so often juxtaposed next to that, and how they both kind of work together in some strange way towards healing. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please share it out with at least one friend. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And truly, thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing the work of Eugene Mirman. This episode is sponsored by Motherhood Unstressed CBD. Pick up your third-party tested organic CBD products at motherhoodunstressed.com. Well, hello, Eugene. Welcome to the show. I am so honored that you're here. I love your work. I'm so excited to dive into that. So welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so rather than diving into your great body of work immediately, I'm always fascinated with origin stories. So I'm curious, how did a little boy from communist Russia end up as a central driver in modern American comedy?
I don't know if that's how I present it, but I grew up loving stand-up. You know, I watched a lot of stand-up as a kid. In the 80s, it was really popular, and I loved it. And then I think at some point, realized that was like a type of job some people had. And so right after high school, I tried it. Like, I signed up for an open mic at a club in Cambridge, Massachusetts called Catch a Rising Star. And I did that. And then I went to a college where you could design your own major. And so I designed the major of comedy and did a 1-hour stand-up act as my thesis, and sort of other, took classes in acting and writing and history and film and sociology and a lot of sort of different things to kind of create this major. But then, did a sort of stand-up show and then kind of kept doing that. So it was just something that I basically had always really liked and then pursued since I was a kid.
Yeah. And it's really atypical, I think. So many people follow a traditional path and they do what they're told. What was it about you that went this other way? I mean, you literally created your own major. Well,
I went to a school where everyone created their own major. But I wasn't told to do something else, so in that sense, I think I think part of it was our parents. My parents brought me and my brother here sort of for the purpose that we could do something that we wanted and have a free life. So I think that they were, supportive of me trying to pursue comedy, even though that is not probably I guess the wisest profession. I don't really know. I mean, I think they were fine with me doing something that I liked. And I think that was I think they wanted me to be invested in it. So yeah, I was also a terrible student in high school. So I think just going to college was already its own,
they were happy with that.
They were pretty happy in that, and in the end, lots of people have a liberal arts degree, and so mine is essentially in stand-up, but, it could just as well be in English. And I think they're probably both as helpful. I mean, I don't know. I ended up doing stand-up, so I guess it's fine.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, and it is unusual for immigrant parents to be so open and supportive. So you were really blessed by that.
Yes. And not to say that they weren't very anxious, just that they weren't you should probably just be a lawyer. So yeah, I they were very supportive, but also I think as worried as I was about whether it would work out.
Do you remember the first time that you did a comedy show and it was successful? Like you felt the energy from the crowd, how that felt in your body? Do you remember that first time?
Yes, it was. I mean, it was essentially the first time. Most people, when they do stand up for the first time, the audience knows that it's their first time and they are very warm and receptive. So the first time I did it, a lot of friends from high school came. It was right after high school. And it was really fun. I was extremely anxious. Like I was shaking on stage and I was really nervous. But it went well, I guess, in that people laughed a lot and it was really fun. Though really just, so anxious. And then the next time I did it at that same club, and then it was like, and eventually a lot of clubs, like it closed maybe 6 months after, not through any fault of my own. But then the second time I did it was like it was very bad. And I was like, oh, I see. It's like, it goes up and down.
Well, I was going to say, that's something that I learned from your documentary. It started as a joke. Like you have to workshop these jokes and workshop your material to really fine tune it. So it must've been those early experiences that taught you that.
Yes. I mean, and then every time you do it, sort of, if you're doing something new, it might fail. I think that what you learn over time is that it's fine if a joke doesn't work. So I think like over time you learn that it's okay and you move on or whatever. But yes, but everyone tries stuff and, you keep trying different versions of a thing until you have it working and then it generally works, overall.
Does something ever never really work out? Or do you ever just like throw something away and you're like, no?
There's stuff that you think is funny that you can never figure out how to sort of get across what you think is funny about it. But sometimes you'll think of, I know lots of people who like think of a punchline to a thing, in 2 years later, or they'll look back to their notebook and they'll see a new way of looking at it. So I think, you discard lots of stuff. There's endless jokes that are like, this is nonsense, or it's unclear, or it's sort of funny, but like, not neither here nor there. Or there's things that you work out that you eventually get to really work,
So let's talk about your documentary. I watched it. Sure. It was amazing. It was hilarious and touching and sad and all of the things. But talk to us about the comedy festival itself, the Eugene Mirman Festival. How did it start?
Well, it was me and Julie Smith-Clem, who directed the movie, did a weekly show in Brooklyn at Union Hall for many years. And I think one night after a show, me and her and Mike Birbiglia were joking around, and I, for some reason, said that I was going to do a Eugene Mirman Comedy Festival. Like there was some reason that I made the joke that I was going to do a comedy festival just with my name. And then we sort of moved on. And then I think as Julie and I talked about it more, she produced the show and directed the movie, and then eventually produced the festival. So we sort of thought like, oh, why don't we, try it once? There was basically at the time, the people who ran Union Hall were opening a new club. We're opening a new club called Bell House. And so we sort of were, I think, one of their very first events there. Basically we did this sort of one-off thing and got a bunch of friends to do it. And it was really fun. And, I think we thought that would be it. But then sort of a few months later, we kind of thought about doing a second one and then kept doing it for 10 years.
Yeah. And your network of comedians is it's incredible. It's almost hard to believe, but I guess it makes sense because it is such a small network of artists and creatives. How did that grow over time to where you guys actually enjoyed working together? It wasn't a competitive feel at all. How did you grow your network like that? I mean, it's a really beautiful connection of friendships. Well, I think so a lot of the people in it are just people that I've known and worked with for now decades. But that is sort of how it all, that world of comedy in New York is sort of like a lot of different people have shows they run and friends, and you tour together and you travel together. So many of those people I've traveled around America with, and some have done shows and, abroad. That's basically you sort of, it's like working and traveling with people for decades. So I think it feels very normal in that's like most of your nights are spent at going to different places, trying to get jokes to work to eventually go on tour with. Yeah, it's a very strange existence, though, isn't it? I mean, it's completely different than, the majority of the population. You live in a completely different stratosphere, really.
I don't know. I guess it's the only thing I know. So in fact, all I know is lots and lots of people who do that. But yes, it's probably different from other jobs, as anything is different from itself. But yeah, I mean the musicians, I know so many musicians and comedians and actors who go somewhere and film movies. So I think it's, it's the only thing I've sort of known largely, though I did spend many years temping in random sort of ice cream parlors.
Okay, so you say that, though, but then how do you relate so well? Because comedy is such a connector. And as you say in the film, it is, so many people are experiencing loneliness, and comedy is a way to connect us and bring us together and bring us joy. How do you do that when you do live a different existence, really, than most people? How do you touch them?
Well, I mean, I did at one point, but then my existence sort of changed for other reasons. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm still mad at things, things still happen to me like they happen to everyone else. I'm just the difference between my job and someone else's is that I've been to, almost every state, but I don't know that my lots of people go to places and things happen that are frustrating. Yeah. I think the answer is, I don't know.
You can totally say that here. That's totally fine.
And now a quick break with a word from our sponsor.
And this episode is brought to you by Sambucol. Sambucol Black Elderberry is the original black elderberry supplement. Black elderberry, if you didn't already know, has been used for centuries in traditional folk remedies, and it's prized for its anti-inflammatory properties and high antioxidant content. I first came across black elderberry in Ireland, and I fell in love with it there. As a busy mom, I cannot afford to be down for the count. I need to feel strong, healthy, and I want support for my immune system, and that's where Sambucol comes in. So Sambucol makes it super easy to feel your best all year round. If you are interested in trying them out for yourself and your family, head on over to sambucolusa.com and be sure to use my code MOTHER15 to save 15% off your order. And if you need any recommendations on which products to choose, they're all great, but my personal favorite are the gummies. They're actually my kids' favorites too. So I just pop them in first thing in the morning with the rest of my supplements, and I'm good to go. But let's talk about that. In the film, it is revealed about halfway through that your girlfriend, and then she turned into your fiance and wife, struggling with cancer. How important to you was that to have that in the film, to document that time?
Well, so I think there was a few things. One was when we sort of wanted to document the end of the festival, part of the reason it was ending was that, I had moved and that Katie had cancer, and that, and Julie had also moved to Massachusetts as well. It both became unfeasible to do the festival in New York, and then also just our lives had changed. So I think that part of it was also that Katie, sort of was very comfortable with it. And then in the end, also the fact that we could kind of make this movie about Katie and I and have this thing be there for Ollie was sort of a big motivation for both Katie and I. To me, I know that it's about the festival, but to me, it's sort of, very much this sort of document of Katie, for me and for Ollie and for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely came across. I mean, you still obviously are laughing at the comics and their jokes and your relationship, and you're as someone just watching it as an observer, you're eating that up. But then this greater storyline underneath is so beautiful and really captures your relationship. And so if you watching that yourself, was that hard to watch? Was it hard to see that? Or have you watched it?
I've watched it over the last year, it's played at festivals, and I've gone and watched it. I actually haven't watched it I haven't watched it since Katie died. But I probably will in the coming months, but I don't know when.
Yeah, it was so well done, so beautiful. So how has life been with your son, Ollie? I noticed on Instagram you're doing a lot more cooking, more dad stuff. How has that been balancing your artistic life with parenting?
I mean, it's funny because I've always done a lot of cooking, but I guess I haven't posted much of it before. obviously there's no stand up, so I'm not doing that in terms of, work related things. I'm largely doing interviews to do with the movie. And then, we're recording, some things for Bob's Burgers, so some of that is happening, but mostly like stuff at home.
Do you have a particular process? Because I feel like, watching you, hearing your jokes, watching your stuff on YouTube, like there is this hilarity, but underneath it's like this sense of warmth and love and connection. Do you have that? Do you write that into the jokes intentionally, or does it just happen?
It's probably a mix, meaning I think some of it that is possibly an intent. And then some of it, I think it's just more, again, a lot of jokes is trial and error. So you think of something and you think of what's funny to you and you think of how to convey it, and then you perform it. And if people laugh, then it works and it becomes part of your act. And if it doesn't, you keep changing it. So, I think it's more what ends up what I think is funny and what works on stage, sense.
Would you ever write a book on how to do comedy, how to do stand-up?
Probably not, but I wouldn't rule it out. Meaning and when I say I wouldn't rule it out, I mean, I would make it a small portion of a book about something else. I would just tell people, the funny part about stand-up is it's not a secret. You just perform as much as you can and keep changing jokes until they work and people are laughing. And then there's no real substitute for just doing that over and over. So I don't know. There's probably other stuff you could do, but mostly it's just trial and error for 10 years and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah. And it seems like there's something connecting all of the comedians, some kind of drive that most people don't have. How would you describe that? What is it that pull to the stage that you have inside of you?
Oh, I don't know. I think for me, it's really wanting to do comedy and the connection with people laughing at a really silly thing. But I don't know exactly what somebody else's motivation. But some people also I would normally do 1 or 2 shows a night. I would rarely do 5, but there's lots of comedians who would go do 5, 6, 8 shows a night, really changing a word here and there and really, figuring out, sort of the perfect sentence. And I think to everyone has sort of a different thing that they love about it and what makes them want to do it. For me, I think it's, doing something really silly, and the connection is probably it.
I love it. So, you've been working in this business for so long. Do you have, this idea of a legacy that you want to leave behind? Was this, this festival, was that your legacy? Is something coming?
I don't know that I've been. First of all, I would like to not leave anything behind for a very long time. So I have no. I don't know. I mostly think of it as I would like to work on things that I really enjoy with friends, and do projects, and then in the end, however people look at all of it, I don't know. I don't have a thing of he was the comedian who made the best pasta.
Well, you might be with how you're going lately.
We'll see. But yeah, so I don't know that I have an idea of a legacy as much as I'll probably have a weird and hopefully enjoyable body of work.
Yeah. Do you feel like Katie left a particular legacy through you? Is there something that she wanted to leave with the world that she shared either through the documentary or just speaking to you that you would want to share?
I think that just sort of the way she was as a person, meaning we had, so she had cancer, and then she had a lumpectomy and chemo and radiation and was fine. And then got it again. And then it was terminal, and so she had it for 6 years. But in those 6 years, we had a child through a surrogate. We went on trips, and she really lived very much like she wasn't dying, and that said with, there were times where she was on a chemo that would really wipe her out for, months. And then times that she would be on a treatment that really, she had some energy and we could go do stuff. And so I think that sort of her just tenacity and her kind of I think just sort of the way that she engaged with just this great sadness I was just always so kind of blown away by and really appreciate. So I think something that sort of thing.
Yeah. And what really struck me, as a mother, to make the decision to have a baby, knowing, that you do have cancer, that this is coming, I think is such a brave and really honorable thing to do, to have that experience, to leave, you with something, a part of her, a part of you forever.
I mean, that was, that's a really difficult, sort of an impossible thing, but we both really wanted to do it. And, I'm really glad that I have now a little boy who really does remind me of her and who, is sort of like a little rascal.
I was just going to say, because kids drive you crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. But he's, it's been hard and strange and talking with a toddler about death and, but it's also been all right. And he, is fairly resilient and is doing okay. But also we're all of a sudden in a pandemic. So everything is, strange, but okay.
Do you ever feel like, during a tough time that she is there with you?
No, I think that's one of the sort of hard things is that, I have her memories and I very much, think about her a lot, but I think the hard thing is that she is gone, and that is really hard. But I do have sort of a lot of really wonderful memories of her and also Ollie, and we talk about it and share them. And, he recently asked, he said, I miss Mama. And I was like, I miss her too. And he was like, can we draw pictures of her and send them to people around the world so that everyone remembers her? Yes, we can definitely do that. So, in the coming weeks, we'll probably do that. So I think she's there like that, but in a way that is both sad, but also okay. And, I think the memory and her presence in that sense is very much there, but I don't know that I feel like she's there.
Behind you right now.
Right. Yes. She used to hide around the house all the time. So
no way.
Yes. And startle me. It was very funny.
Okay. We'll look for signs. You never know. I think that's beautiful. And I think you're doing exactly what Ollie wants to do. You are sharing her story, her light, her tenacity with the world. That came across in the documentary. So anyone watching that would feel that too and know her.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for some rapid fire?
Yeah. Yeah.
Comedy is
enjoyable.
I'm grateful for.
The things that I have and for Ollie.
And lastly, what's something that you've learned in life that you wish someone would have told you earlier on?
The funny thing about that is, and somebody asked a similar thing recently, I think the problem is that there's so much that you learn through the experience that I don't think someone telling you this thing that won't exactly work out, because it's easy to get people to tell you what to do. But it's very hard to know what will work for you. So I don't know that I have a specific thing that I think I wish somebody had told me to do this, and then that would have saved me 9 months. I don't know. I mean, not to say that because I think so much of what you, because having things that don't work are the ways that you figure out what works. So it's not that I think that, something, was particularly great. I just more am I think you just need the experiences you have. Yeah.
Is there anything you're going to tell Ollie though? Okay, don't do this.
Oh yeah. Don't try to blow up a can of Lysol or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure that I'll have lots of advice. I just mean I don't know what to go and tell myself in the past. But I'm sure that for Ollie, I'll be like, yes, stop doing that. Don't do that. That's very dangerous. I used to like jump down. I had like a staircase where I think I would try to jump like from a higher and higher step. And I never hurt myself, but I also didn't go that high. But I definitely, now I'm like, oh, if I saw Ollie doing that, I'd be like, don't do that. It's crazy. What are you doing? That might be, but that's a very specific. So I don't know. Yes, I think I'll tell Ollie. I mean, I'll probably drive him crazy with being like, yeah, that's a bad idea. But, again, he'll probably have to learn it through his own experiences.
Yeah. As a mom of 2 boys, I can completely relate to that. It's wild. Well, thank you so much, Eugene, for sharing your story, for creating the documentary. It started as a joke. It is beautiful. Where can our listeners find it and find more about you?
They can find it on iTunes, Amazon, and then I think all the other places that people put stuff like that. They can learn more about me. I don't know. I guess they could follow me on Twitter or Instagram or something. And they can watch Bob's Burgers. That's a thing they could do. They probably maybe already do it. But who knows?
I have to say, that's one of my favorite shows, and people probably wouldn't think that about me, but I've been watching it for years, and I let my children watch it, and they think it's hilarious, and I probably shouldn't do that, but I love it, and I love you, and I think you're fantastic.
Thank you very, very much. Thanks so much for having me on.
You have been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you love this episode, please share it out with a friend or on social media. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You just have to hit those 5 stars. You don't even have to write anything. And as always, make sure that you're subscribed so that you never miss a guided meditation every Wednesday or every Monday, an interview with an amazing guest doing amazing work in the world.